There are some names that are synonymous with performance and success, and one of those is Ed Pink. Joining us now, the old master. Ed, welcome to the Engine Performance Expo. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Oh, we might ask you to unmute your computer screen. It auto mutes. How about now?
You what?
There you go. We just couldn't hear you for a moment, Ed, but now we hear you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Oh, yes. Well, we've been looking forward to it, honestly, and this has been a fantastic day so far. You've had such a legendary career early on, drag racing, but you didn't stop there. Your natural curiosity brought you through, like, the whole gamut of motorsports.
Yeah, pretty much so. You know, it just every one was a new challenge, and I thrive on challenge.
So I was just reading Snake's book, and there was a couple of parts about you and those early day rivalries. Let's start out there for our audience. You know, you guys were pioneers. It was brand new at the time. This whole like make a living with engines and racing. It kept you guys from doing other things. When you look back on that era now, you know, what stands out in your mind?
Well, you know, I guess being stubborn and going into an era that at the time wasn't really popular, and I guess all of the people that were involved, as they went down the road with it, they made it popular. And, you know, when we first started, I mean, it was nothing like it is today. I mean, you know, in fact, you know, years ago I had somebody ask me, if compared to what it cost when I first started to build an engine or go racing, compared to now, is there a big difference in the cost? You know, and I thought for a moment, and I told him, you know, no, it's the same. It takes every time you got.
Yeah, all of it. How do you make a small fortune in racing? Start with a big one.
Yeah, no, very true.
Now, then it's interesting that, you know, blowing up engines was definitely not part of the program, right? Like, you guys kept the heads on them back then, and it was really all about tuning an engine, and we wanted to make it live, as opposed to, I'm talking about nitro stuff right now, the expectations that it was going to have a short lifespan. You wanted your engines to live.
Now, back when I got started, you know, and guys are drag racing and they're breaking a lot of stuff. And I knew that the only way that I was going to build a business and get people to come to me is my engines had to run good and they had to live. And that is the thing that I focused on, was making the engine live and then making it have power. And that was the only reason that people would come to me.
Now, as drag racing continued on, and you referenced, you know, we all remember it was, you know, street toughs, right? Two-lane blacktop. There was a lot of money spent to make it seem like a negative thing. Anyone that wanted to be involved in cars and performance. Thank goodness that you guys kept the nose to the grindstone and legitimized it so that we can do something like we do today. Without that effort being put in, who knows where we would be or the opportunities that we would have. But eventually you kind of worked your way through drag racing, had a lot of success with the top names. Many and most had some relationship with Ed Pink Racing Engines. But then you got interested in some other stuff, and ultimately spent time at the Indianapolis 500, over at the big track, and through sports cars. Take us through that transition when you decided, you know what, I love drag racing, this has been great, but I want to get involved in some other things.
Well, when I first got started, I started in the dry lakes up in California. And then I went to Bonneville. In fact, I went to Bonneville the first year in 1949, more or less as a spectator. And when it went from there, from the dry lakes, then transferred into drag racing. And I did drag racing for a lot of years. I was very fortunate to have a lot of the top teams run my engines. And then in the early 70s, I saw a transition started to happen. What happened was, the thing is, big sponsorship was starting to come in for the teams. They were starting to build their own engines. They had their own engine guys work for them to build the engines. And I saw my business, as far as building and selling engines, drag racing wise, started to diminish a little bit. And I noticed that most of the activity that was going on were people that were having us do machine work for them, buying parts, pistons, rods, that sort of rings, that sort of thing. And a lot of advice. I spent a lot of time on the phone helping people, which I enjoyed doing, but I didn't make any money at it. And I realized that if I wanted to stay in the racing engine business, I needed to look for other opportunities. And about that time, a gentleman by the name of Bill Eaton that worked at Bell's Parley Jones, he and I were pretty good friends. And he would stop by my shop every once in a while to see what's new. And one time he came by and said, would I be interested in doing some machine work for him on their new Indy engine project? And I said, absolutely. So we started doing connecting rod machine work for him. And it was very successful for him. And then they wanted me to see if I could line bore the cylinder block. And at the time, if you had a Cosworth engine, the V8 Cosworth, and it needed to be line bored, you had to send the cylinder block to England, which is a huge time delay. So anyway, we built the tooling so that we could do the line bore on the main bearings on the Cosworth block. And then it led to doing valve seats and cylinder heads, and pretty soon we were doing quite a bit of work for them. We didn't build any engines for them. We were just doing machine work. And then Cosworth in England saw how successful Bell's Parley Jones was with their Cosworth engine as far as IndyCar racing. Because, mind you, when this first started, the engine that they converted for an Indy engine was a DFV engine, which is 183 cubic inch, normally aspirated engine on gasoline. And they were going to take this, Bell's Parley Jones, we're going to take this engine and make it 161 cubic inches from 183 and turn it into a turbocharged engine on methanol, which is a pretty good task, which they did. And when Cosworth saw it, they said, we need to jump into this ourselves. That looks pretty good, which they did. And then one day, Cosworth called me on the phone and said they understood that I'd been doing some special work on the Conrad. And being that, they're going to a turbocharged engine, they wanted to know if I would do work for them. And I said, yes, I would. So they sent me 100 connecting rods to do as far as the machine work, the special work we did to withstand the pressures that a turbocharged engine produces. And we did those, and the next thing I know, they wanted to know if we could do some line bore on blocks, because at that time they had moved, and they moved a facility from England into the United States in Torrance. And it was strictly a sales company at the time, and they didn't have any mechanical or machines. So we started doing the line bores for them here in the U.S. And then it went to just one thing after another. And then one day they called me and said, we'd like to run our engines on your dyno. I said, fine. So we started running their Cosworth engines on the dyno. And then they called back another time and said, we'd like you to do the engines for us too. So I said to them, I said, you know, the IndyCar people, they're not going to have a drag racer build engines for them. And they told me that don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. It will not be a problem. I said, okay, fine, I'd like to do that. So I said, the only thing is, we've done machine work on these engines and all the various parts for you, but we haven't built one. We don't really know, you know, how to build them, you know, how the tolerances and everything go. So they said, don't worry, we'll send Chiki Hiroshima to you. And Chiki is a top engine builder of all types of engines, and he was working for Cosworth at the time. So they sent Chiki to my shop for 2 weeks, and he trained our guys on how to do the engines. And lo and behold, Cosworth kept up their word. They sent me 2 teams that we were doing engines for. And it got to the point that my drag racing business was going just the direction I saw it going. And I had to make up my mind whether I wanted to stick with drag racing and probably put myself out of business or go the new way with IndyCar. And lucky for me, I selected the right way, and I went IndyCar. And it was like 1979. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot, had a lot of fun, had some great teams work for me that we built engines for, rather. Tom Sneva, Al Unzer, Senior, Ari Lyondike, and we were very fortunate in '83, the engine that we did for Tom Sneva, he won the Speedway with. And then it got down to the point that Elmore came into it, and Elmore is the company of 2 ex-Cosworth employees that started their own company, Elmore, in which Roger Penske was involved, and Chevrolet was involved. And when that happened, they went into leased engines, which meant that the independent engine builder was limited on what he could do because the Cosworth and Elmore were doing the bulk of the engines, and they leased them, so nobody else would work on them other than them. Because whatever technology and secrets they had, they didn't want them out to just anybody. So the IndyCar engines kind of slowed down, and lo and behold, Jim Busby, an old drag race customer of mine, called me one day, said he'd like to come out to lunch with me. And I said, fine. He came the next day, and he said, he says, I'm racing the 962 Porsches, which is a turbocharged engine car. And he said, I want you to do the engine. And I said to him, Jim, I've never done a Porsche engine before. I really, I haven't done it. I don't know much about it. He says, no problem. We'll send you to Germany, to Weissach, which is the R&D center for Porsche. We'll send you there. So, okay. So I went to Weissach, and I was there for 2 weeks in the engine department, learning how the Porsche engine is built. And it took a few days before the guys in Porsche in the engine department realized that I wasn't there for the overthrow of Porsche or the overthrow of Germany or anything like that. I was there to learn, and after that, I hit it off really well with them, and we had a good relationship. I worked in the engine department, I worked in the dyno department, and I was there for 2 weeks. And then when that was over, I came home and showed my guys how to do it. And now we've gone from the Indy thing, we've gone from a turbocharged Bentonol engine water-cooled to a turbocharged flat six air-cooled engine on gasoline. So there's a whole new world again, but we embrace it because it's something new to do. We did that, and it was very successful. The good thing about it was that when Jim hired me to do this project for him, he had the backing of BF Goodrich Tire Company, and he didn't want to be just another Porsche engine out there running. He wanted the fastest and the best that you could possibly build. And up till then, he'd been having his work done at Porsche. And the one thing about Porsche is the series was completely Porsche engines, Porsche cars. And so why would Porsche extend their engine when all they're doing is racing each other? But their engines were good, and they ran good. But Jim wanted more power. And the thing is this, that
had a moment where Ed has frozen up, and so we're going to give it a second to... there he is. He's back. Welcome back, Ed. We lost you for a brief second, but now we've got you.
Got me, okay.
Yeah, you were building more power. You were taking the Busby engine and you're building more power so he could beat the factory cars.
And the thing is this, we didn't reinvent the wheel. It's still a Porsche engine. We didn't change anything. All we did is refine the areas that we needed to, and we learned how to work on the Motronic system, and we learned how to change the rev limiter. We learned how to add more fuel to it. We learned how to raise the boost level. We learned how to raise the RPM limit. And when we first started with the engine, they made about 675 horsepower, 680 horsepower, and that's about where it was at. And when we got done, after 9 months of extensive testing and development work, we had 850 horsepower. And it was bad news. I mean, it made a lot of, and it really, you could see it on the straightaways how good it was. And that being said, the next thing happened was Pontiac was very impressed with what we had done with the Porsche, and they wanted me to get involved in an engine for them for sports car racing that was used in a spiced car that was built in England, which we did that. So it just went, I was very fortunate that each program happened to come in at the right time. Because from there I went to the midgets and the Silver Crown cars and the sprint cars and on and on and on. I've just been very, very lucky to be at the right place at the right time with all these various projects.
Yeah, you say that. The real answer is everybody recognized your extreme talent and ability and were desperate to get you involved. Now, Ed, we have got a surprise for you, a couple. First of all, I'm going to be joined on set by someone that you've got some experience with. You can't see us, but we can see him. Certainly, Mr. John Callies is with us.
Hey, Ed. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm doing great.
Oh, man. Great to see you. This has been super.
Great to see you. Well, I can't see you, but it's great to talk to you.
We've got such a collection of personalities. John has been on the set, and we just wanted to get you guys together. John, thinking about Ed, just like all that he has just listed off, it is a lifetime. And you could hear when he said, oh, they're not going to want a drag racer to build their IndyCar engines, that, oh, yes, they will. And not only that, he went out there and made it happen.
Oh, no, and Ed, the thing is, his experience is just phenomenal. And the help that he gave to us was just terrific. And easy. Ed was easy to work with and produced what he said. And, I mean, you hear his history. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just a fantastic history.
Yeah, a lifetime of
Yeah.
success. And Ed, we're going to keep the surprises coming now as Lake Speed about to come in on scene. And it is unfortunate that you cannot see, but you will hear the folks at Rottler and here at the Engine Performance Expo would like to present to you on their behalf their Cutting Edge Lifetime Achievement Award for your career involved in motorsports, starting out in drag racing and leading right up through right now, because we know you are still active and interested, and this is a Lifetime Achievement Award. I got to tell you, Ed, you can't see it. This thing is amazing. They have put this trophy together for you, and they're going to make sure that you get something, but the folks at Rottler just really wanted to do something special, so John and Lake, and just on behalf of everyone, thank you and congratulations on your life's work.
Well, thank you very much. That's quite a surprise. I mean, the good thing is I have quite a bit of Rottler equipment in my Ed Pink racing engine, which I no longer own now. But that's very nice. I appreciate it very much. You know, it's always nice when other people realize what you've done, whether it's good or what it is. But they realize what's going on. Very, very nice, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Ed, it just means the world to me to be able to be the one to virtually present it to you, because I consider you a great friend, and you met me years ago and have mentored me and given me so much wisdom, and I appreciate you, as Joe had mentioned before, pioneering the industry and making this possible. Without guys like you that put their necks out there and said, you know what, I'm going to find a way to go racing for a living. You didn't see it earlier, but Warren Johnson was here. He made that same thing. Do I want to drive a truck or do I want to drive a race car? And you, as an engine builder, said, do I want to build diesel engines and flathead forge for taxi cabs, or do I want to build race engines? And you decided to build racing engines, and we thank you for that. We all thank you for that. And this award is yours because you're the man.
Agreed. You are the man.
We lose him?
I think we may have lost him. Maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't. I don't know.
Well, exactly. But Ed Pink, Lifetime Achievement Award, great stuff. John and Lake, thank you very much. And what a segment we just had here at the Engine Performance Expo. I want to take a couple of seconds to mention the sponsors who have made this possible. The folks that have made this happen, folks like Rottler. Rottler on board, obviously. We're seeing their machines, but behind the scenes, they have made it possible. Folks like Total Seal, Lake obviously works there on a daily basis. Matt Hartford's birthday. They fit the rings in so many championship race cars. It is amazing. CWT Industries. Yesterday, that video is in the archive. You can definitely get it. And amazing stuff with the balancing. Really appreciate Randy's involvement. Higgins Performance.
Joining the meeting.
Very happy that Higgins is on board with us here at the Engine Performance Expo. Also, speaking of schools, Samtech, samtech.edu. Ed is back. Ed, we just wanted to wish you a thank you and congratulations.
Hello?
There. Well, shucks.
There.
It's a live event. Stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, hey, first time's out, little things. So we can hear you, Ed. We can see you. Hope you heard what we were saying about you. It was all good things.
It was the best stuff, Ed. It was amazing.
Been wonderful knowing you all these years, Ed. Thank you.
Excellent.
Cool.
We'll keep on going
Yep.
as we get Ed dialed in. The folks at samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology, Judson, Linda, Brian, that whole family, thank you for supporting. Edelbrock, of course, industry leader for so many years. As a Pontiac guy, so thankful that years ago they decided to invest in making some Pontiac intakes and cylinder heads. Thank you very much, Edelbrock, on behalf of all Pontiac fans, but also the greater industry. Thank you very much. Qualcast, thank you so much. Comp Cams, Holly, Melling, Elgin being on board. I know those guys are out there watching and even participating in the comments section. Driven Racing Oil, very good. Lake is going to help me out with the problem that I'm having, thanks to Driven Racing Oil. Promax and Turn 2 Vice from BBD Performance. Really appreciate everybody. And for those of you out there, the next time you need something, think about these sponsors because they made it all possible. All right, we're going to move on to our next segment. day, what a day, what a day. Yeah, my brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.